Rosemary Anderson High School has experienced a tidal wave of trauma in the past 2.5 years. 5 students have died in shootings, another was stabbed to death, and 2 more kids died in car crashes. My colleagues embedded in that alternative school for much of this year. The result of those months of reporting is a series called The Safest Place. I'm Andrew Thien, and this is Beat Check with the Oregonian. Up next, Noelle Crombie, Beth Nakamura, and Samantha Swindler. We talked about their project, what they learned inside and outside the walls of Rosemary Anderson, how the kids and staff are coping with the trauma, and the success stories of students who have experienced a lifetime of challenges, many not of their own making. Here's our conversation. Noelle, Beth, and Sam, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you and your team for your superb reporting.
Thanks for having us.
Noelle, can you take us back to the beginning? When did you first start spending time at Rosemary Anderson, and how did you end up there in the first place?
Beth and I began reporting at Rosemary Anderson in February of this year. And I had for many months wanted to report on the effect of gun violence on the school community, and how people who are on the front lines of disrupting gun violence, what that work looked like and who they were. And Rosemary Anderson, we knew from our extensive gun violence coverage over the past 2 years that the name of the school just came up a lot in the reporting on victims. And we sought permission from the organization that runs Rosemary Anderson, and they eventually agreed to give us what turned out to be unrestricted access to the school beginning in February and really right up through right now.
Yeah, and Beth, unrestricted access to a school, as a photojournalist, I guess, how are you approaching that when you're in a school, days on end?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It sounds like, oh, great, you just go in and, just like shoot away, but actually, I think I spent more time there not taking pictures than taking pictures. I think a lot of what I did or we did over the course of several months was just, establish trust and connection, because even if the school has granted permission and access, that doesn't mean, every teenager in the building has, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of just kind of hanging around and, becoming from a familiar presence and over time, getting some work done. But I would say I probably, like, if you saw us working in there, like, I probably didn't really look like I was doing a whole lot, like I would, make pictures here and there, but.
Yeah. And Noelle, maybe can you describe what the school environment, what it looks like, and where is Rosemary Anderson for people who don't know?
Sure. Rosemary Anderson is a small alternative school. It's located in the community of Rockwood, which is a section or an area of Gresham. And it serves students who are referred to it by a handful of school districts in East Multnomah County that sort of are along or outside, just beyond the Portland border. So we're talking about places like Gresham and David Douglas, Park Rose, Centennial, Reynolds. Mm-hmm. And the building itself it's pretty unremarkable. It's on a very busy thoroughfare set far back from the road. It does not look like a school. Looks like an office building you would see in a commercial plaza. Thousands of people pass by every day, probably not even having any idea that it's an alternative school. And inside it's classrooms that are sort of strung along a long corridor. And there are some very subtle things that signal attention to security. The students enter through a separate door, and they undergo a casual security screening by a really friendly staff. And students find themselves here for a variety of reasons. Big schools don't work for them. Some of them are entangled in the criminal justice system. Some have some gang associations. And this is a place where, they're getting very individual attention.
Sam, how did you get involved in this project? And can you kind of describe what you were hoping to accomplish?
I came into this project late and basically just worked on the video part of it. We wanted to create a story booth video room where students and teachers could come in and just share their stories, sort of like a little confessional booth almost. And we wanted to be able to give them that opportunity to just speak pretty much unfiltered and get sort of that real, raw, emotional stuff in video.
Yeah, and I'm going to play an example of that in a second here. But can you describe, there's a book in there, right, for the students that they kind of poured through that people might hear in the audio? What was in the book in the story booth?
Yeah, Noelle put together a book of prompts, and it was just kind of open-ended questions that they could answer, and you could kind of flip through it and pick the ones you wanted to talk about and skip the ones you didn't. And it was questions about how have you been impacted by gun violence? Tell us about your school. Tell us about your life. What are the struggles that you're going on? What are your hopes, your dreams? Really all kinds of questions. And it was interesting to see which ones students gravitated towards and how seriously I think that they took it. It was really powerful.
It's extremely powerful. And let's listen to some of the audio from one of those videos right now.
A lot more people I've met in Rosemary have died than in Reynolds. I've had a lot of friends here, and I probably count almost each one of my fingers of a person that's passed away.
I lost my best friend, and he was a good person. One of the most, unique people that I've ever came across.
Just standing out by my window at night, I hear gunshots.
I know people who have been hurt by guns, died by guns.
I lost, I'd say, about 3 friends to gun violence, and the one that affected me most, was my friend Alex.
My brother's Isaiah Maze. He was just walking to the store to get a bag of chips with his girlfriend. It was like 5:30. And it was somebody we knew too, because we all used to hang out together.
What is it like being a teenager living in Portland, Oregon? Scary. I mean, I could get shot walking down the street, either just for being Black or talking to the wrong people. Us kids are getting shot for no reason.
It's dangerous. Kids want to be something that they don't even know about.
It's sad that people don't understand the real power behind them, the real, the real way it can affect people.
And it just hurts me to think about how people like my age or people in just general aren't really caring about other people's lives.
To be honest, I used to be in a gang, and every time something happened around us, I got shot at before and everything. I went from seeing my best friend, that was my brother. I went from seeing him every day, being with him every day, that now I just can't even call him, nothing. All I got now is I got memories left, and I wish he was still here.
For it to have been someone he knew hit me even harder because I knew that person. I think for the rest of my life, I will carry the guilt that I didn't say anything about the feeling I had about that person. And I hope that someday when me and Alex meet again, that he knows that I tried.
Miss your smile, bro. Miss your laugh. I miss waking up with you, bro, playing games, bullshitting, you know. Going out to water the plants, the garden, the girls, as we say. Yes, sir. One thing I want people to know about my big brother is he's very loving, kind, caring. He'll be there for you if you need him. He'll tell you right from wrong if you need advice on something or situation.
Okay, so it's extremely challenging to watch these kids. And I'm just wondering how you react to seeing that. I mean, you develop relationships with these teenagers. I mean, what's it like to see that and hear what they have to say?
It's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. We set up this booth and we set up the camera and set up the ring light, and then you kind of step out and you leave them alone in the room. So, and we've never done anything like this before, and we really didn't know what we were going to get. So it was kind of a mystery. We took the camera home and I, downloaded the footage, and I had no idea what was going to be on there. But you could tell when some of the kids came out of the booth, they were emotional and they'd been crying. And so, but to watch all of it, and it was 4.5 hours of video footage that we got from this. And it was pretty sad and emotional. I get really choked up when I see, particularly the teenage boys talking about this and just being really vulnerable and sad, which I guess is maybe a demographic that you don't think about as being really emotional and open like that.
Mm-hmm.
That kid at the end, Austin, talking about his brother is just so sad.
Austin talking earlier in the video, and this is a detail in one of the pieces, about watering the tomato plants, the girls, right, Noelle?
Yeah. I think, there's a breadth of trauma and loss that the students at Rosemary Anderson have experienced that's so extraordinary. They're carrying burdens that would, level any of us, and yet they're going to school and they're dealing with lots of challenges outside of school. And I knew as a reporter that I would not be able to really capture all of that experience, that I would most likely end up following just one or two students, and how would we possibly convey all of these other kids' lives? And that's where this idea came into play, and it, I think, is really what I think is so powerful, is we're elevating the voices here of just letting the public see raw what this loss looks like for young people and how they shoulder that loss. And like Beth and Sam said, a lot of these kids came out of this booth really shaken up, and it took a little while for this thing to for the kids to warm up to this idea, and so we weren't really sure what we were going to get out of these videos. And but as we saw kids emerging, looking like they had cried, or that this was really heavy for them, it was just turned out to be really powerful.
As I remember too, I think that once we got a few kids in there and they started to do it, then word spread pretty quickly through the school that this was cool and people should do it. Or I think also it, there were some, well-designed and very open-ended questions that ran, across the gamut of life's experiences. But I think being in there alone, I think it gave them agency over their own stories too, in a way that having journalists in the room quells or
Yeah.
tamps down on a little bit somehow, or you have to just build, you have to invest a lot to get to a point, and here you just kind of strip all that away, and it's just them in a dark little space talking to themselves, really, So I think it's very powerful.
There's so much in this project that hopefully by the time people listen to this, they will be diving into the different chapters as it rolls out. But, this newsroom has spent a lot of time over the last 2 years chronicling the gun violence surge across the Portland area. But as you kind of set from the jump, it's not just Portland, right? It's Rockwood and these areas in between. Noelle, can you describe just the scale of the gun violence that Gresham has seen and the loss that these kids have experienced directly over the past couple of years at Rosemary Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, Gresham has experienced an unprecedented number of shootings over the past 3 years. The number has skyrocketed. And the students that we met have experienced the loss. It's actually really shocking. For classmates, friends outside of school, cousins. It was, and at first when you go in there, one of the first things I noticed early on was there was a young woman sleeping in the hallway, like kind of off to the side, and I asked about that, and the teachers told me that the student had lost a parent, and they were facing some additionally challenging, difficult situation at home, and that the student wasn't ready to learn. Came to school because it was safe and stable, but not ready to learn, and they're not going to impose learning on a young person who's just caring a lot. And I saw that multiple times through the course of the year. A young man we followed experienced the sudden loss of a beloved pet, and he came into school the next day and just crashed on a couch. And when I later asked the teacher about it, he said, he needs now is to just grieve. And so I'm just letting him do that. It doesn't make sense to cram information into him. And so it really did feel like a different place in that regard. Just the kind of there's a heaviness. I want to say though, there's tons of laughter. They're kids, so they're super charming. I saw tons of warmth, lots of friendship, jokes. This isn't like you walk in and it's like somber. It's actually pretty lively. The hallway is, this little social hub where kids hang out, and they love their teachers. That's really clear. There's like real camaraderie there. It's a really small school. And so I want to be careful and not convey that this is just a real downbeat place, because it's not. It's a school, and the young people there are facing just kind of additional challenges.
Yeah. Can you describe a little more about the staff? And, it's so, a couple of people on this call are married to educators. And so we know that, being a teacher is a lot, and your emotional and professional duties to your students are a lot. So how did the staff at Rosemary Anderson, how do they navigate all this while trying to, keep students engaged in learning and helping them on the course to graduation? Like, what tricks do they have? Like, you outlined some of this in the series, like the ways they motivate and encourage, but like, can you describe kind of what you saw firsthand?
Yeah, Beth, do you want to jump in on that? Because you were there as much as I was.
Yeah, I think that, what I was thinking as you were talking earlier about the school atmosphere, and not painting it as an entirely funereal, place, not at all. I think, one thing I came away with that seemed clear was how primary relationships are in that building. So that connecting with the kids and establishing trust and connection, and that is more important. That's the most important thing in a way. So I just saw a lot of that attention to trust building and relationship building, kind of in every corner of the school.
And to add to that, we're talking about students whose experiences with school and history with school is generally poor. And some of them have been expelled from school. Others, one young man I spoke with said, he just, his school experience, he just linked it to sense of failure. And so students walk into this building with a lot of baggage around the idea of school and teachers. And what I saw was just like a lot of efforts to reach out to students individually and to make connections and to let students know, if they weren't there on a given day, that's noticed, efforts to track that student down. And then if the student showed up again 10 days later, a kind of, unconditional acceptance almost of that, just kind of a lot of meeting kids where they are, and not adding to the trauma that they already associate with the school experience.
I'm curious how this reporting has changed, if at all, how you view the metro area. There's a lot of schools in East County and elsewhere that have students who are going through a lot.
I know, I was just thinking that, it's not just these kids, it's all kids. Really, in the past couple of years have been particularly brutal on kids. So I'm sure there's a lot of this mental health stuff manifesting everywhere in schools. Everything washes up at school. So, for me, I don't know if it changes how I view it. I think we're kind of connecting some dots here, hopefully, with sections of Portland, certain sections of the region with other parts of the region, and, introducing them to each other and making real, the data and the headlines and everything else. I think for me, it was little, like I'm a mother, and I'm a mother of, boys / young men. So it was challenging in the sense that my mother instinct was constantly being triggered, and it's like the journalist part and the mother part were not at odds, because it's good, right? But it was, it was a lot.
Kind of same question to you, Sam. Has this illuminated anything for you, or is it just kind of about this specific story, I guess? Because it's not often that you get to see this much. We strive for stuff like this unvarnished reality, and you captured it.
I think we should think more about what is journalism and how we go about telling stories in ways that we haven't told before. If we're examining the stories that we have told in the past, and the stories that we haven't told in the past, and the stories that aren't often told, we should think about why they haven't been told. And are there different ways that we can provide an avenue for those stories to be shared and for people to tell their own stories? And I think, like Beth was saying, have agency in that. I thought that was really exciting, and I hope that we can do more things like that and think a little bit outside the box. And I usually just do features, so this was really exciting to be part of the dream team of, the investigative work that the Oregonian does, and to have a small piece in that was really great. It was cool to see Beth and Noelle at work.
Noelle, do you have any takeaways in terms of this place you've lived for so long, and now you've invested, the better part of a year of your reporting life inside the walls of this school and outside, I guess, as well. But has that changed or illuminated anything for you about, I guess, journalism, like Sam said, or this place we call home?
I think it just reinforced a couple things. One, it's a real privilege anytime you can gain access and be able to tell these kinds of stories, and especially to be in a school setting in these really very, very intimate, granular details of a school life and the people who inhabit that world. It's kind of a dream. You're living a dream when you get to that kind of trust and access, and then I really enjoyed getting to spend so much time in Rockwood, and that's where one of our subjects, Duke, lives, and it's tragically also where Dante McFallo was shot to death. And this is a neighborhood. This is an area where all these students they live. This is their home, and I really appreciated the chance to spend so much time there. Just getting all this time to get to know a part of the county we don't really cover as closely as we may have at one point. And so I don't know that I have any big takeaways other than for me it was just extremely just a big honor.
How are you going to keep in touch with people out there? Because I can't imagine that you just drop a package like this and that's that.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning that when Duke Mitchell graduates, and I know he will, I want to go to that. It's like I think Beth and I and Sam will probably go to graduation next spring. I mean, I don't know. We're just it's a place that we now kind of have, we have some ties to, and I mean, they were really patient. It's a real pain to have journalists crawling all over you every day and in and out of school and asking for access. But I think also, I hope that at the end, through the work that the Oregonian has done, that I hope that the Rosemary Anderson students and the teachers there feel like that the community sees them.
Yeah, I remember in the very beginning of when we were trying to get access to the story and we had all these meetings, and eventually there was this like Zoom meeting with like 15 faces on the screen and all from various aspects of Rosemary Anderson and POIC. And I always remember Joe McFerrin saying at one point, this is all well and good, but I can't do this alone. We can't make this happen in a vacuum. The kind of transformations, the kind of stuff we're looking to get through these programs. Can't do it alone. I never forgot that because I think, that we potentially provide connection between them and what they're doing and other parts of the city, the state, policymakers, community members, and everyone else, to connect us all. We're all connected. We're all very much alike, underneath our differences. And so I kind of hope that I feel very protective of them. That's probably never going to go away. I want to extend that protection in the community when they, whoever interacts with these stories, to remember that they're kids, they're children, and we're all in this together. And there's vulnerability here, and to please handle with care.
Yeah, that was kind of one of my closing questions is what do you hope people take away from this package?
I hope that the students whose lives we, stories we told, I hope that they feel seen and heard and kind of like and witnessed, and I hope that people can appreciate these are young people who are dealing with challenges, but they're also just like these two kids that we spent the most time with this year. They're also really fantastic, and I hope that people that comes through, and that they are persevering despite some pretty significant challenges, many of which were not of their own making. And also I hope I was really moved by the kind of care that the teachers at this school provide students. I mean, it's really above and beyond, and it's consistent. It wasn't just, oh, the Oregonian is here better. No, it was like we were there so much. It really got a genuine sense of the kind of skill and commitment of the teachers there, and it's pretty above and beyond. And so I hope that and it's work that like no one sees that. No one is seeing teachers doing all this extra stuff, and it was just really impressive.
Can you give some examples? Because I know there's some in your reporting.
Yeah, our very first interaction with a teacher, I was looking for opportunities to spend some time with her, and the next thing she was doing was going to a funeral of the young man who died on January 1st. And she lives far away, and she was going to be coming back into Gresham for his memorial on a Saturday, and that just really stayed with me throughout the whole. And then she eulogized him as well, and in a really lovely tribute, and I just saw that kind of just extra care throughout the year. And teachers bringing in, this English teacher bringing in books for students because he'd heard that they were interested in one particular thing, and so he'd ask friends to chip in and maybe make an Amazon order or buy something at a Goodwill. And I just felt like there was this kind of extra layer of attention.
That's really true, because usually you go, you do a story, kind of your typical story. You maybe go once, twice, maybe a few times. You get a few passes at a scene or a situation, and then you walk away. But everyone's kind of got their Sunday best on, if you know what I mean. But when you're there month after month, you really, like, all that veneer gets stripped away, and you kind of just see the real stuff. And this was the real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we saw teachers having bad days, kids having bad days. Again, I'm not painting this as a movie set school. There's hardships, and students have profound challenges that they bring into the school. But you're there long enough that there's some true things that emerge, and one of the truest was just attention being paid.
Well, is there anything else I should have asked you that you would want to add?
I think Beth should talk a little bit about this beautiful still life picture that she put together for this.
I don't think that's up
Great
yet in the design. Did you see it, Andrew?
No, I don't think so.
It was a still life of like a little painterly little scene with a bunch of objects in it. So that'll run on day one. So I guess it'll be out by the time this runs. So, I wish I could say how that came about. I don't remember. Ideas just kind of happen. And I knew I wanted to make I knew that all we had of Dante were his relationships and his things. And of his things, there really wasn't actually much. And so I knew I wanted to make some kind of photograph. The challenge with what we're doing, especially when people aren't here anymore, is to try to animate them, to bring them to life, to make them, meaningful, and to build connection between them and readers. So, this is kind of a typical thing that we do. So anyway, I worked with his family and received several of his things little by little. Took a while to get them, just because you're kind of wading through grief, really, and having to go through things or find things, and so eventually I got most things. And then at a later stage, actually, I received Dante's ashes. So I wanted to just make an image that honored him, and made him beautiful. And so that's all I tried to do was was make him beautiful. His death was ugly. He was alone. And it was not covered by anyone. It wasn't covered by the Oregonian. And so I wanted to dignify his life.
Well, the package is tremendous, and it's. I hope people spend a lot of time with it and think about what people carry when you are passing them out in the world. You never know what people are carrying with them. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Beat Check with the Oregonian. I shared links to the first chapters of The Safest Place in the episode notes. If you like this show, give us a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts. It really helps people find the show. And tell a friend. Help spread the word. The best way to support our journalism and projects like this one is with a subscription to Oregon Live. You can do that at OregonLive.com/pod support. Until next time.